Black bar from my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blood and face, can't fact check the madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was...
Good morning. What's the world?
Got tails, I ain't clean.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, you kind of cut out for a minute.
I was being rude that way. I don't know where Chicago is. I guess they'll be in a minute or so.
Yeah, they know.
With us soon.
I got I got a rare confirmation of message received from them.
Oh, all right. Well, fingers crossed. Here's hoping.
Yeah, and right now, I just found a bunch of old SD cards.
Oh, very nice.
My little headphone thing, and I'm realizing that I don't have. I think I might have to crack open an old laptop. My new laptop doesn't have one of those SD slots.
For
like this size, like one of these adapter guys.
Right, yeah, but what are you using those for?
I've used them in these recorders.
Oh yeah.
Like little Zoom recorders. And mostly that's it. A little bit of GoPro stuff.
Yeah, I have a stack of those things. And one of the things that I'm mostly doing with my the AI I'm building is to be able to sort through video files and put them together, and then possibly. Oh, thank you so much, Tamal. Yeah, bless you. That like sort through stuff, like, because I've got footage from shows upon shows upon shows upon shows that I'm never going to get through on my own. Yeah,
never going to get through it on my own.
Nope. Not gonna happen. And by the way, I'm still waiting on Chicago. It always makes me a little bit nervous when they're...
Yeah, let me check my phone.
Yeah, are they okay?
Where'd it go?
Did they get the right one? Do we make sure they have the same one? We're all live. We're doing great.
Yeah, I sent them the same link. 763. Yeah. Let me see.
They might just be running behind, but we're right up against the drop of news. So. It always gets me nervous, especially when it's not my fault.
All right, so Paul said okay, so not Devin.
Okay. Well, we'll just wait for him to show up. Hi, chat room, hit the like, share the show while we're getting up and running in the back end. Hello, good night, good morning, good afternoon. How you doing? Hey now. Let's see.
Redact this.
Yep, that's right. We're not afraid. Yeah. So much news. It's just, oh yeah.
So many tips.
Yeah, just the tip.
I saw there's good news about the tariffs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great. Yeah, we're doing good. What more could you ask for, Johnny Money? There's this business. Oops, I gotta change the shape of my camera again. That's why am I all over the place?
That just impaled me, my man.
There we go. And then that's the other one. I see. That makes sense. What is this guy? What's that? Oh, that's you. I see.
Oh, that is me. Yeah. Hang on.
I got it. Okay. All right. Yeah. Chicago, we good? Where are they? What's happening? Hopefully they're okay. Hopefully they're listening. We're well into the first minute of the show. If they're yanking us off,
I just said everything good. We're live.
And I don't see them in our interview thing. So,
and they're not saying that the link doesn't work.
They're not saying anything. It's very exciting. Are they okay?
I know.
Caesar, Anthony, are you okay?
All right, I have enabled all notifications on my phone.
God, I think that's a mistake. I'm going to turn all mine
Chicago
off.
is still in break, so I've got a feeling that they're having a hard time connecting.
That could be a possibility.
But they're not telling us about it.
We'll resend the link, and it ends in a 3.
Yeah.
I will not be silenced. I'm going to, you know what? Let's start as if, at the very least, in Chicago could join us mid-action. Because, I mean, this is the breaking news of the morning or whatever. This goes along the same methodology. I'm starting to see a pattern here, Johnny Million, in
what kind of pattern?
How Trump BS's. That's
I still think that he's trying to be Vito Corleone.
Yes. Oh, yeah, no question. Although Vito Corleone had actual power that he understood. Like he came up through
He
the
did. He
mob.
absolutely understood his power.
So he also knew the consequences of the overextension of that power. If you get too far out over your skis, the other 5 families might check you. They're not actually your friends. Even if they act that way around the table when the 5 families are meeting, they're really jockeying for your position. Whereas Trump seems to think the other, the 4 families that are against him are actually really his friends. Russia, China, the like, North Korea, Iran, even to some degree. It's a very odd part of that. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. And as a person who was, he's worth like $10 million before he was 15 years old because his father was using him as a tax dodge and giving him a salary since he was 5. So, and that money itself had to go into like a play account just to keep him busy and distracted. And it didn't work, even though he was given every opportunity in the world to kind of jumpstart an enormous career, a head start in the real estate industry that anybody, lots of people would bludgeon someone for. I don't know if kill is the word, but certainly not push somebody off the trail on a hike. That he still ended up friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Roy Cohn and hanging out with mobsters who gave him the concrete that's in his building and ended up with a casino that went broke that his dad had to bail him out of by buying $15 million worth of chips that he never intended to cash in. And then shortly after that, a couple of guys that worked on it with him died in a mysterious helicopter crash that he last minute decided not to get on. All that stuff. Like, how I don't get this. With a head start like somebody like that has, you'd think you could busy yourself accomplishing some stuff, but I guess not. And in this case,
he hasn't really accomplished anything. He just breaks things.
Nothing. There's Chicago. Look at that.
Yay.
Thank God. Yay.
Yeah, they just sent me a note saying they were having technical issues.
Well, Chicago has muted themselves and they're in, we see them and they can hear us, hopefully, and they're just fine. Now, so what have we heard all along in Trump land? What have we heard all along in his methodology that maybe, I guess, yeah, exactly. 2 weeks. It's happening and it's going to be better than anybody's ever seen. It is classic real estate developer BS. This is going to be gorgeous. Yeah. You know what Donald Trump is 100% the little cardboard people they put on the grassy parts of an architectural design around a museum or a city building or something like that. And the little cardboard people that are always like walking their dog and, doing stuff, those people, you can tell how confident an architectural company is oftentimes in how many of those things they put on the grass and surround. If it looks like, man, it's going to be a party outside this building, the design is kind of crap and they know it. But if there's a couple there to make the point, like this is almost just for scale. The guy walking the dog lets you know how big the doors are compared to, that this is proper scale, But if it looks like Occupy Wall Street is parked outside, maybe they don't have a tremendous amount of faith in the design of the building. And Donald Trump is that guy. Donald Trump is that guy. Like, look at the huge crowd outside this building. You're like, yeah, this is a treasury building. I don't know if that's good. That's the kind of thing that's like saying on January 6th, look how many people were out on the Capitol steps. This is amazing. People must really love democracy, right? So his whole sales pitch is classic real estate BS. It's this, and he was even doing it this week, walking around his heliport and talking about the million-year lifespan of the marble they put down, which, by the way, they're going to have to cover with carpets or people are going to slip and kill themselves. It's just so dumb. It's mind-boggling on the driveway of the White House. And in all this, he's doing what he always did, which is this kind of selling mechanism to make himself look capable and aware and bullish on whatever he's doing, right? This is how you do it. If you're ever worried about funding for your building or those kinds of, put on a hard hat and go down and stand around with some plans under your arm and go, this part's going to look fantastic. This is all going to be great over here. You're not going to believe what we have. The best fittings, you're like, it's like Hammond in Jurassic Park, spared no expense, and that it's a good way. It has been traditionally. My dad was an architect. It's of settling your buyer, your designer, your financer, that project is on, it is on time, and it's ahead of schedule and under budget, right? That's the big sales point. And he even says this about things that have no timetable and no budget. The heliport and all the stuff that he's doing to the White House, he's like, we're ahead of schedule on this. You're like, idiot, there is no schedule. You made this up.
Yeah.
You fabricated this. It could take forever. And again, the idea is this 2 weeks, it's going to be awesome. You wait. You just wait. Now, in a couple of areas, he's had to punt this to 2 years from now, where the next president is going to take credit for what I did. Don't remind everybody that how awesome things are when, which is very close to the Spinal Tap. They were still booing him when we came on stage.
They're still booing him.
Yeah. Which is just genius, by the way. As jokes go, oh my God. So they were still booing him when we got on stage. It's just
we had to apologize for our set with him.
Yeah. So he is he's got this thing that, like, the manufacturing jobs that are going to be coming are going to be amazing. And the next president better remember to thank me for doing all these things. Now, why is he saying that?
We all better remember to thank him.
Twofold. One is there are no new manufacturing jobs happening right now based on anything that he is doing. The manufacturing that we're seeing in the United States, which is expanding in the Rust Belt and the Midwest, has more to do with the Recovery Act and the Chips and Science Act than any tariff nonsense that Donald Trump is doing. He knows it. They know it, because the factories he's taking credit for were already in process when he took office. There's no, plans are being rolled out now, ground is being broken now, kind of thing, because these kind of projects, especially at this level of development, take years, at least 2 to start. Even the like, we bought the land, here it is. Even with the data centers, a lot of these things, these expansions, were already triggered in the internal economics of the companies when the AI boom started in earnest in about 2022. He knows this. He's aware of this. That's the reality. There's a factor why I think Donald Trump feels like he can mess with the U.S. economy and it can take it. And he can steal and grift all he wants. He can damage it all he wants, because the spine of it that has been created is so strong it can take it. And if there is any big 2008 waiting to happen, which, by the way, I will argue there isn't, and especially around the AI bust situation, which people have been over, and I have a very specific reason for that. That he's counting. he's counting on that, that extra whatever third of the market that's been created by AI to at least continue through 2036. So even if if the chickens do come home to roost, it'll be well after his blame window. So he's confident in doing that. The same thing with oil prices and why they're not $300 a barrel is because he knew coming into his presidency, or at least Bessent and the other guys knew, that we're in an oil glut and that oil glut is going to continue. And that even though we shaved 11 million barrels off of what was going through the Strait of Hormuz on a daily basis, even at maximum, what we're getting through is 9 of the 20 that used to go through there. We're still only about 1.8 million below demand. And that demand is muted by anybody who's stored any, or they're using their strategic reserves like China is doing. So that's why the price hasn't gone higher, because there's too much oil being pumped and refined. There's demand destruction. The world has moved on. Europe and increasingly the United States and our Cybertruck friends know this very well, are moving towards electric vehicles. That's the way we're headed, and at the very least hybrids. And so the demand and need for oil is going to increasingly diminish. It's got a targeted sunset of about 10 to 12 years from now in a major sense, and they know it. So one of the reasons why you declare war on Iran, one of the reasons why Russia declares war on Ukraine, and knowing the sanctions are going to come, is it raises the price of oil for a time. Yeah. When you know it's actually way cheaper for you to produce and there's no market for it. It tightens the demand, or it tightens the supply when demand is static and decreasing, which is the only other way you can raise the value of whatever you produce. And if you're like Russia, if you're a gas station with nuclear weapons, you don't make anything else, certainly nothing of value. That's a manipulation you're comfortable with. Same thing with Trump and his tariff idea. He can't make manufacturing happen here. I have a theory about the immigration stuff that's been going on, especially under Trump. This is the more ham-handed version of it, but it is a trend that started, I would say, halfway through Obama, that is technologically driven and has a lot to similarities what happened during the Eisenhower administration. Let's take a break. We'll do a quick one and then we'll come back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio Chicago. That's right. That's what we are, man. We're everywhere. We're on the interwebs. This is... Apparently, I don't know if you know this, Johnny Million, but the USMCA turns out was not the greatest trade deal ever. Huh.
Which one's the USMCA?
It's the one Trump replaced NAFTA with.
Remember? Oh, yeah. No, that was awful.
Yeah, apparently it was the greatest trade deal in history until it sucked, until it's just awful. It's like,
yeah,
it didn't help at all.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Back already.
Yeah. So Donald Trump's war with Canada fell apart, or his trade back and forth, these talks, and this is indicative of Trump, both his sort of taco knee-jerk back and forth. This is where we are. This is introduce volatility to a market that is on a steady growth chart because a new industry has entered the fold, and due to supply chain issues the world had under COVID, a certain amount of manufacturing is going to be reshored around specific materials for national security reasons, whether it's drug production in the Carolinas, whether it's steel, to backstop the need for steel in case there's an embargo. Trump's whole tariff version of things is just the idiot's hammer of kind of like keeping his own people, his like right-wing business people, from buying cheap Chinese steel and that kind of stuff, and undermining his economy while he's president. The attacks on this are by and large, one need only look at the drop shipping Christian CrossFit crossover in the Amazon financial world. Look who is freaking out.
Favorite buzzwords.
Oh man, look at the financial crossover in the CrossFit, the Christian CrossFit crowd, and the drop shipping Amazon. Like, I make $1 million selling plastic pitchers that I write a little review for, and then I do like whatever that stuff. Okay, and those folks, when somebody like Trump gets in, they're like, we're in the money, my taxes are going to go down. So therefore, if one of the ways I can maximize how much I'm making is I will, my taxes will go down, and I'm going to find the cheapest crap I can sell possibly. I'm not going to buy it
Yeah.
inside the United States. I'm not going to maximize American made goods. What is that? As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring them into the country, and then I'm going to go product of America. So put a little sticker on there that says product of America, because I'm American and I live in my, McMansion outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm shipping in plastic pitchers and selling them all over the place to, as a mini Walmart distributor, right? That those kind of things. Like, those people counted on Trump. They did it last time, which is why it drove us into a recession, partly going into COVID. If COVID hadn't come along, Donald Trump would have ended his presidency in a recession of his own making, which is very similar to what's happening right now. There's a material reasons behind it, and there's an economic theory that Besant participates in, this sort of mechanical undermining of the dollar and all kinds of stuff to create shocks so you can offset debt and shove and throw it out. And but the problem is they're still operating in the real world, and so do all their rich friends. And so, like, all of those guys are like, hey, you're wrecking everything. Like, they're not ready to go full Curtis Yarvin. They're not ready to go like Peter Thiel. Like, I'm going to park my yacht
Well, I
next
know
to
Peter Thiel, but I don't know Curtis Yarvin.
Curtis Yarvin is JD Vance's hero. He's one of these kind of like
Okay.
basement dwellers that maggots like to mock.
But who funded JD Vance? I thought that was Peter Thiel.
That was Peter Thiel. Curtis Yarvin
Okay.
is like, let's see if I can find like a picture of him. He's one of these guys who says that technology will eliminate democracy. That
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah. New Yorker did an article on him. Here, I'll show it to you. That's just adorable, and he posed for a picture for it, which is just magic. Curtis Yarvin's plot against America. Yeah.
And the hand behind it. What's
and the hand behind his back
doing?
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
crossing his fingers. I'm crossing my fingers twice behind my back.
I feel like he's acting like he's on Jeopardy and going for the buzzer and miming in front of a leather chair. It makes no sense. It's very silly. It's a very silly.
Or he's
person.
like, I'm ready for the reboot of Friends.
And needless to say, he's a hyper right wing, right of Ron Paul kind of blogger.
Wait, somebody in the comments said, didn't he want to use people as food?
Yeah, he makes jokes about he makes like Soylent Green kind of people, Soylent Green kind of jokes all the time. And
it's
or
a
he's
show
saying,
on Apple TV where the aliens come down and start eating us.
I don't know. It's I remember V. Like they were eating all the guinea pigs though. But the point is, Curtis Yarvin's one of these guys who's just like, democracy can't hold itself up, and people are too gross to be able to run their own stuff.
Pluribus.
Anyways, Pluribus is the show. Okay, gotcha. I have not read
big
that
spoiler.
One. So, rat. Thanks, man.
Sorry.
Damn. Check that off. Just check. All right.
Season 2 will be a surprise.
Anyways, let's just to clarify. Curtis Yarvin is a self-involved Ayn Randian dope, and it's no surprise that like this, faux bootstrapper J.P. Mandel would cling to this guy's britches in an attempt to give himself some sort of like right-wing credibility after working with Ron Howard, which is against a crime against God, apparently. And
with Ron Howard?
Yeah, J.D. Vance, he made Hillbilly Elegy, the movie. Ron Howard made the movie of his book.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
How did I miss that? That's awful.
Well, um, because I lived Hillbilly Elegy, and I'm here to tell you I wouldn't watch that crap. Like, especially people who are distinctly middle class compared to my upbringing. You know, acting like they're the blind kid in Deliverance. Don't get me started. Anyways, so
So how far we have fallen from, didn't Ron Howard direct Splash? That
he did.
delightful rom?
Uh, yes. And you know, and again, the patchwork scene where if she gets wet, she turns into a fish, but it was raining in the kissing scene. So if you notice, her hair flaps out and flaps back and flaps out and flaps back because they had to do a loop of film to hide the fact that it started raining the minute they did that, because she would have obviously turned into a a fish. So the half fish. I mean, I don't want to judge her. But
Yeah. I mean, we don't
by the
know what
way,
her aquatic pronouns are.
exactly. I don't want to judge too much. But so Curtis Yarvin is one of these guys like Peter Thiel and others. They've given up on America a long time ago. And the problem with that, when those guys are on your side and they're effectively running your vice president, is that if you're going to pride yourself on selling that you're better for the economy than anybody, and you're a genius that can figure out everything, and you only hire the best people, those folks are actively undermining that. Your direct partners in this experiment on the American economy are the antichrist to your self-projected Christic value. So Trump has a real problem here. Again, this is not like Democrats aren't general strike being what it is, and people talking about that, which ends up being by and large blather all the time, and usually called for again by rich streamers that live in $1 million houses calling for the workers of the world to unite. We need a general strike. Will you be streaming that day? Of course. Right. Will you get ad rev for your stream that day? Of course. Right. But you guys walk off the job, and you totally won't be replaced with a machine, I promise, in your absence. Right. Anyways, that you get it from both sides. But that's it, as much as people try to turn that into a thing. The real group undermining Trump's plans are Trump's own people, are the very people he has aligned himself with. Republicans, again, treat America like they're renting an apartment. After they pull the screws out of the wall to get their security deposit back, they fill the holes in the wall with toothpaste. And by the time you notice, they've gotten the check and they've moved on. Whereas Democrats treat the place like we have a mortgage. Now, manufacturing and the economy, and why Donald Trump thinks he is safe on the back of it right now, and the panicans in his own party and the doomers are setting themselves up for a rug pull. And I'll explain why after this. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I don't know if the UAW is calling for a general strike. Usually the UAW calls for like a parallel strike with them and another big union, like the hospitality workers or those kind of things. But yeah, unless they always are. But it's still, yeah. Let's see. Hmm. Let's see if I can find this. Trulos.
Tippity tap. I got to do something about that. I wonder if it's because my receiver for my, here, let me try this. Is it the same?
It's a little less loud, I guess. But I can't tell if you're just doing it lightly.
I know. Yeah, let me try to type normally. And another thing.
It seems better.
Yeah, okay, so I actually had the this bit. Can you see it? Oh, not quite.
What am I seeing? Oh, I see. Yes, right. Your little insert.
I was resting on the keyboard. So while it's not the mic, it's still receiving. All right, well, now I'm all fucked.
Dun, dun, dun. Load. Okay. Why would you? This Trullo's map is slow. It's probably
I'm very quickly unfucking myself out of a situation with a band that I started to play with. And
welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh no. Welcome back. So a couple of things. Let's see if I can open this up. I wanted to show everybody this. So one of the reasons why, like Donald Trump has used to call himself the king of debt. Remember that? Like he would talk about how, yeah, absolutely. He was the king of debt. The whole point is, and as a developer, as all these other, folks will say all the time, you are never, you never do this stuff with your own money, right? You always, like get financing, and then if it falls through the floor, it's not on you, correct? It's that you're safer that way if you're not investing your money in the property or in whatever.
Yeah, if you're like an LLC or something.
Exactly. You can always jettison it, declare bankruptcy and that stuff. But if it's your cash and you pour it into it, then it has to work or you're in big trouble. Well, Donald Trump is one of those people who, for a very long time, prided himself on on using other people's money and leveraging it and doing it very stupidly. Again, his stake in the Chicago Tower, for example. Every one of the other holders of the building, there's like 6 other major partners and a bunch of foreign LLCs. Never mind. That bought into the building. He's basically got a branding deal with that building. His stake in it is very small compared to theirs, but he pays $100,000 a month more in interest, maybe more now because it's gone up, than the other people, because they all refinanced when interest rates hit about 2.5%, 3%, while he was president last time, because of stuff Obama had done that were still positively affecting the economy. And so interest rates were on their way down. The idea was that there would be a growth element of it. It kept the Fed kind of in check about this. And then COVID rolled around, and Trump thought genuinely that he could scare his own dude, Powell, into saying the national debt and the interest on the national debt is an emergency, not a crisis, but an emergency. That it's dangerous to national security that we have to pay as much in interest as we do. So we need to drop interest rates to negative so that the Fed pays you to borrow money so that we can flood the world with liquidity in US dollars, which, by the way, as the reserve currency of the world, we have done that. One of the big things about our national debt that nobody talks about is the fact that you loan money into existence. And you have to do that if your currency is the currency of the world. If everyone is trading oil using your currency, do you realize how much you have to borrow into existence so that that industry, which is apparently ginormous, can function? Like, there have to be those dollars in existence. It has nothing to do with the American real estate market or even American manufacturing or salaries or wages at that point. That money is the lubricant for, ironically, a lubricant for oil. It is, and without that money being in circulation, if you don't loan that money into existence, and create the debt, the inflation-based debt that's, when money printer go burr that everybody talks about, that doesn't function. Either somebody moves on and buys and sells it with another currency, which is, again, not a big deal, but if you want a slice of it worldwide and you're building your economy on a tiny slice of oil, for lack of a better phrase, the colonization of the oil industry, which, by the way, when this all started, was either we were going to do it or the British were going to do it. Better us than the British. And the other option is pirates. So during Bretton Woods,
better us than the British is one of my favorite sayings.
Yes, right. Well, hey, but look, there was a story about there was better us than the British. There was a big story about Meghan Markle this week, going back to do something and be somewhere and doing something. And I was like, I don't care. We fought a war, so I don't have to care about royals. I don't believe in magic families, and I don't believe in magic rocks. I think every family's magic, and I think the whole world is a big magic rock. So this idea that you're like, this is the Holy Land. It's all holy, stupid. You just treat it like that. Anyways, don't get me started. All right, I'm trying to stay on track in this. So there is a shift that is happening, and you can see, by and large, why Donald Trump and Bessent, who's giggling through this whole thing, there's the parallel economy aspect of this that is obviously there, which is that there are rich people who do not look at the price of gasoline because they don't fill their own car. They have somebody go do it. Some of them even drive Cybertrucks anyways, or Teslas, just because they're buddying up with Elon Musk. So they don't even have gas to start with. They drive an electric car while crapping on windmills and stuff like that. But the people on Fox Business that I always see are always talking about it in terms of the investment nature of oil. And they don't understand why the average voter, especially maggots, especially Trump followers, are bristling at them all of a sudden. And the reason is because barrels of oil that you have never seen that sit on a tanker someplace or in a warehouse someplace or end up being dumped into a strategic reserve and then refilled later, buying and selling those things and knowing you can make money either direction. Oh, buy low, sell high. I'll sell high, I'll buy low. Whichever way it's happening, that oil still exists in the theoretical mathematics of your economic future. When you and I, Johnny Million, buy gasoline, we burn it up and we don't buy any more until it's gone, right? So we think in terms of the mechanical destruction of a commodity, and they think of the shifting value of a commodity. And these are concurrent streams. There's no reason why, if you're in a union and your pension fund is invested in oil rigs and stuff like that, that you don't make some bit of money when oil goes up, lose a bit of money when oil goes down, or vice versa, depending on who's managing it. That could be true for you, but it's not as true for you as filling your tank up at the pump, right? Groceries, same thing. These people can look at frozen concentrated orange juice like the Dukes in Trading Places, and that's how they talk about that Dukes. It was the Dukes. If you'll recall, that was them manipulating the market around the orange crop in Florida and whether a frost would affect it or not, and therefore the price of frozen concentrated orange juice as a commodity, which is a kitchen table product in America, especially at that time. They picked that product in the script specifically because of its commonality. Johnny Million, do you remember the cans of frozen concentrated oranges? It feels like with Amazon.
I was thinking about those the other day.
Yeah, where it would come out like the dog food in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You'd squeeze it out. It was like a big push. It was like an orange push-up, but it had pulp in it and all that, right? And it would just lunk right out, and then you'd mix water in, and you would have orange juice from that, right? Stir it up,
stir
right?
and stir and stir.
Yeah. Everybody remembers the bloop of it going into the water, right? So he just put that. Yeah, Greg just put that in the chat. So the experience of most people is breakfast is more expensive for me, my partner, my children, and that spreads through the rest of the day. The orange juice isn't in the fridge anymore as a drink in the afternoon. It's each thing is a step where if I want that, it's going to take more money out of this thing, out of my gasoline or the vacation we're going to take later in this year, and I'm going to divert it to that. And when it's gone, it's gone. And that's the fundamental difference between how the Trumps of the world and the rest of us look at commodities. I mean, the irony that Trump feels weird about the word groceries when commodities is actually the rare form of wording around groceries. Groceries are commodities, and they are traded on a commodities market, and they vary in large bulk, as we saw with like the price of beef recently, because the herds have gone down, because the demand for beef was going down, and then the news about cholesterol in 2015 and all this other stuff turned around the idea on red meat as it was on its decline and spiked back up to it's actually okay, and to some degree the fattier the better, because you digest protein if you have enough fat better than if you eat lean meats in some cases, and yada yada. So this turned around, and suddenly people were eating a lot more as the herds had been declining. Never mind the other factors, just disease and drought and all these other things that always do happen. So that turned around really quickly, and it's going to take a while to re-steady it, because the demand shift was enormous. Now we've got a situation where, thanks to the Obama administration, and again, this started with immigration. It's very much similar to Biden's reshoring of manufacturing. Is that there's been a trend, I think we all agree, against offshoring of manufacturing for quite some time. And there's a variety of reasons why people don't like it. The primary one you hear the most is, they took my job and they sent it overseas. And now, that one sort of has, in the right-wing corridors, that is, they took my job and they gave it to an immigrant under the table, or the immigrant came and took my job. To it, I would like to point out, as several other people have pointed out over the years, that if your job can be taken by someone who doesn't speak English and also has to feed and clothe and care for their family under the radar in a foreign country, maybe get a better job. Maybe it's not as skilled a labor as you think. Maybe you don't have a right to that job in a weird way. Or maybe that job isn't worth what you were selling it at, I think, is where they go. But that's an argument for those folks to have with themselves. The issue that we have here is that the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and arguably late into George Bush, after the Iraq war, he needed a distraction from that. The big trend was, we got to bring manufacturing back. We have to make stuff here. That's the statement. You'll hear that across the aisles, bipartisan, in one way or another. We've got to make more stuff here, and we've got to give these people back their jobs. Here's the problem. Labor costs being a significant part of any consumer good. If you drive up those labor costs, you drive up the cost of the goods, and you eliminate who can afford those goods. And right now, in the United States, the upper 10% of the economic earners in the country are booing the consumer spending in the country. Why is that? Why is that? Boy. Yeah, boy. Why is that? I'll tell you after the break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Mm-hmm. I've always envied your ability to make squishy fart music with your hands. Yeah, it's very impressive. It's the size. I think it's your finger to palm ratio and your general size of your palms. Yeah, I've got these, like you'll never play piano, kid hands. But
quit breaking your fingers.
Well, no, but this is the reason why I punch harder than you.
Oh, yeah. There's so many reasons.
That's a big. I mean, you're bigger than that, but that's the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. One of the reasons why little guys like me have these little rock-shaped fists and big knuckles is, to make up for the fact that I can't slap you from as far away.
Think Theory Radio, right? Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, we have been, I've been talking about the oil glut for a while, and everybody was looking at me like I was nuts. And the math is working out on my side. Bloomberg finally came around to it. They were admitting we were headed that direction. And arguably, the Iran war is the only thing keeping the oil glut off the radar right now because it artificially drove up the price of oil temporarily. And by the way, I would argue to benefit oil-producing countries. Now, the United States is not a net oil producer. That's not mainly what we do. But it sure works for Saudi Arabia if your Nome project where I don't know why you would name your line city after one of the dumbest cabinet members that Trump has ever had. But remember the line city in Saudi Arabia that they were going to do this like almost Panama Canal cyber city all the way across? Did you see that thing, Johnny Million?
No.
Oh my God! No. You haven't seen? Oh, that it's been canceled. But this was part of their Saudi Arabia 2030 some nonsense. Okay, and hold on. Okay, so they I want to see if I can show pictures of this thing for you, but it's fairly hilarious. It was going to be this literally a mirror city that on either side and it's just a big canal, which by the way would create gusts of wind that would kill everybody that lived there. So yeah, not particularly good. Just saying. But the Saudis were going to do this. The Saudis were going to build this thing. Why? Why would you do that? You're rich. There's barely any cities in your country. It's mostly desert. It's not like you have to pave or you're going to worry about creating foodstuffs on a big scale. Your population is never meant to grow to the size of ours or China or something like that. You're not the only people that you're immigrating into your country besides temporary businessmen are slaves. So I'm not quite sure what, you would need this big, shiny city in line for, except if you're running out of oil and that oil is a dying product and that eventually the world is going to shift away from it, both because the extraction and refining costs and the difficulty of it and the pollution around it will reach the end of its ROI, its return on investment, eventually. And it will be better to invest yourself into solar and wind and geothermal and tide power and those kind of things, things that are permanent, even nuclear and micronuclear, things that are permanent or relatively permanent, where you don't have to ship anything to get the thing you need to burn the things you need to make things you would ship elsewhere. It's a secondary business redundancy that if you could get rid of it, period, you would, and they know this. So that's why Saudi Arabia was actually the last phone call that Trump had before he attacked Iran. He got the sign off from MBS. It wasn't Netanyahu who had been yelling at him all year to do it. It was when MBS said, "Yeah, knock yourself out." That's when he did it. Why? because Saudi Arabia needs the price of oil to go up for a while, because their pipelines are fine, so that they can sell it at a higher level without the increase in functional cost. And they knew this would do that for them, regardless of the occasional drone strike or whatever. That's what insurance is for. So the very nature of the oil market and the fact that the United States is the trading currency of the oil market. Now, the petrodollar has been way overvalued in terms of geopolitical importance over time, because
What's a petrodollar?
Petrodollar is the fact that oil is traded in US dollars, and therefore there are US dollars that have to be in circulation for it, and that's what artificially, in theory, shores up our economy, is this trade in the value of these dollars. Now, again, unless those dollars come home, they end up being coupons other people are trading, because nobody's going to cash them in the United States. The debt comes in forms of treasuries that create those dollars in the first place, so they can go out in the world and people can use them back and forth. But they don't have any direct value until they land someplace permanently.
Gosh darn it.
What?
In the chat, Moon Girl said, this is not to be confused with a petrodollar, which is only good south of the border in South Carolina.
Oh, in Napoleon Dynamite. So, by the way,
vote.
Yep. If you notice, by the way, in the picture I'm showing of the Gnome City or whatever, look how small the ships are in the picture. It's ridiculously stupid. Right there. These are like the walls on either side of this, which are completely flat and don't slope into the ground around them, are the size of like the Twin Towers. Plus.
Wait, so is that a thing, or is that just like an artist rendition?
That's an artist rendition. They have not built it yet. Okay. They built like a square block of it and went, phew, that's hot out here. Let's stop that. And it would create a tornado alley down the middle of it, because that would
seriously, it's sort of like in
I love it.
In the Hail Mary, when they're like, all right, we can save the earth, but we're gonna have to destroy the earth. By like putting all the solar panels up in the desert
around the earth. Right, yeah, right. Just bury everything. So there's too much oil. The market's going down. Demand destruction is what it is. It's a real thing. Even if China comes back online and gets back on its feet economically, which looks unlikely, they're still going to trend towards electric cars there, especially because they import. China imports, for all this trade deficit crap we talk about in the United States. China imports 80 to 85% of their energy and food. On a country that big, 80 to 85%. Of course, you're going to look to eliminate oil if you have to get it through the Strait of Hormuz or anywhere else, even from Russia, even from across a border in Kazakhstan. You're going to want to get rid of it. You want to stop that process for your own survival. So this is where it's trending towards. The same thing is true, by and large, of the mechanics of reshoring manufacturing in the United States. We've never had so much manufacturing in the United States. You hear Trump say this all the time. On the one hand, it's kind of true. It's certainly, what he means is since the mid-'80s, which is about the time they started packing up facilities and moving them outside the country. And in the Chrysler protection racket that we all saw around Lee Iacocca, we saw movies like Gung Ho, which is, again, a Chinese phrase that they used, and they were, I think, Japanese or Korean workers. But let's just not get into the accidental racism of people not being able to tell anybody apart. Back then,
accidental.
They tried hard. The whole point was everybody ended up getting along and having mutual respect, and that was a lovely thing. We forget that the 80s was a lot of those kind of movies. And so, anyways, there's been a couple of areas where, for national security reasons, we need to move businesses back home. It's this just-in-time manufacturing where you get parts from everywhere and slap it together isn't going to be enough. We got to start making some of the stuff here, because if you want to lower taxes so much that our country is paid for with tariffs, especially, then your country is going to be subject to embargo. And you need a big consumer base to have enough tariffable stuff to come in that you can fund your economy, but none of it can be crucial, because if somebody can block the boats leaving with chips and other stuff like that, you're done. And we sort of saw that with COVID, right? So the Obama and Biden administrations both did these kind of like, okay, we can see the direction this is going. And I brought up the Eisenhower expunging of 1 million immigrants before that Trump thinks he's emulating. But and the parallel to that was post-World War II, the availability of the tractor, and that more farmers could afford a tractor and they got cheaper and ubiquitous. And therefore, you didn't need 5 guys pushing a plow and helping you on the farm. You needed one, and you could drive the tractor yourself. And the vision of American farming for a good long while was somebody sitting on one of those red tractors, the farmer himself, not a hand, not somebody else, pulling a plow behind him. And never mind the John Deere stuff and the giant threshers and stuff that came along after that eliminated the need for farm workers in everything except picking. Picking is the last phase. And if you could eliminate the cost of labor from picking fruit and vegetables and that kind of stuff, you would drop the price of it for the consumer somewhere in the order of 20% minimum. So if you, but the difference back then is there were tractors everywhere. Let's get them out there and in your hands. And they're already coming. And here are these guys, and they're sitting around. We need to get them out. It was a reaction to the tractor showing up. Tractors were already there. The guys were out of work. Let's get the guys who are out of work out of here, because they're idle hands of the devil's workshop. It's going to be bad. The difference now is this is a projected strategy. And so the immigrants that are here that are doing certain jobs are going to be replaced, in theory, by the robots and the automation and all that stuff that people are worried about taking, quote, their jobs. When in reality, the first jobs they're going to take, by and large, the mechanical jobs anyways, are the jobs of people who are here illegally, are the people who have been operating under the table, who you don't pay. You pay.
I can't.
Oh, did I drop out for a second? I see myself.
For a second. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. So and we're near the end of the hour. But
do you have Phil today?
Yes, we do. The tractor came and we had to get rid of a bunch of dudes who were sitting around. The ladies stayed. That's why down in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. That's because her husband and everybody else had been shipped back, and she was there by herself and wanted companionship. That's where those songs came from. It wasn't an accident. Now we're projecting it. Now we're going, in 5 years, in 3 years, a lot of the immigrant community that we brought in for cheaper labor are not going to be necessary. And so they're trying to get ahead of it and force the hand of it. And this is tech in hand with government working together. And but this is going to be an ongoing saga. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Phil will be joining us, hopefully from Kyiv. There's obviously been a lot going on. There he is. We'll be back right after this. There we go. And let's see, where are we? Oh, that's why. You silly thing. And put Phil in. Phil. Mm-hmm. Put this in here. There we go. I'm going to restructure these things. And then, and he's in guest 3. Bonk. There we go. Hey, there he is. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Yeah. Good.
Good to
Thanks.
see you, sir.
Another scorcher.
Yeah, is it crazy out there?
Yeah, we're still going through a heat wave.
Does it feel hotter when they talk about it in Celsius?
No.
But does it feel colder? Like
do you think about it in Fahrenheit though? Or are you like so acclimated?
I think, yeah. It's a good question. No?
Matter of opinion. Whether or not that was
sure.
I happen to think the letter F is a hotter word than the letter C, and I think that's part of the problem. C sounds colder because it starts the word, and F, you've got fire, flame. You know, there's it just leans in that direction. And
Whatever works.
Fahrenheit's a German word, which always sounds a little more dangerous than Celsius. Sounds like an exercise beverage. That's my theory. And I'm sticking to
it. I have no input.
I know that's not true, except I hate working with children, which is a David Carradine quote, by the way. Did I ever tell you that?
Kung Fu?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Kung Fu the Legend Continues. You remember and Chris Potter, who played my character Michael Novotny on Queer as Folks, his boyfriend on the first season, really was like first big relationship. Chris was his grandson or whatever in the show, and it was the legend continues, and there was this big thing about how like Chris Potter had a flight to catch and they had one scene to shoot, and he was all like he needed to rush the scene so he could get to the airport and all this stuff, and he was waiting all day for Carradine to show up for the scene. He's like, I gotta get to the airport, goddamn. And they start shooting the scene, and Chris forgets his lines. Carradine has no problem because he works drunk. Chris forgets his line, and Carradine goes, I hate working with children. True story. Joining us right now is our dear friend Philip Ittner, and I feel like there's a tie between the conversation that we were having about manufacturing in the United States and the drone warfare advances that Ukraine has made, out of sheer necessity, certainly, but also out of ingenuity and the reality check of the circumstance of being attacked by a bigger, more violent force that I don't think at any time in the near future is expected to stop, is expected to give this nonsense up or not try again. Which is, I think, the more crucial part is that Ukraine's issue is not they don't want a peace process, they don't want they don't they want to keep warring. It's that they don't believe Russia and have no reason to believe Russia. If that every ceasefire, like with Donald Trump, is really an opportunity to reload. It has nothing to do with an actual process, or is something to placate the populace temporarily to make it look like you want peace, and then go see what they did. They made us do this. And it's a perfect opportunity for a false flag or something like that. Like we were all peaceful, and then they fired on us again. There is that reality meets ingenuity, the necessity being the mother of invention in this circumstance that Ukraine is going through is one of those things that I don't think people understand is going to be the driving engine of Ukraine when all this is said and done. That because Russia's going to be a constant threat in many ways, Ukraine's going to have to keep at it, being on the cutting edge of all this tech stuff, war-wise, but also they're going to have to make themselves more valuable to Europe. They're going to have to be involved very deeply in the financial exchange going there, so that if something happens to them, even if it's not a NATO situation, it hurts the rest of the European economy. If you need, if you want Africa to have grain, you got to make sure that these guys don't set fire to our fields in an act of, fake partisan warfare on the edge of the Donbass or something like that, right? So Russia's making the future that it is accidentally creating the future for Ukraine that it was trying to eliminate.
Well, yeah, and even if they did do that, Ukraine's not just going to sit around and get all peaceful, let's close up shop on our military industrial complex. No, they're going to, if there was a ceasefire tomorrow, yeah, it might allow Russia to go and lick its wounds and rearm and refit and call up more soldiers and all that kind of stuff. But Ukraine will be busy too, and so will Europe. So, they're building Ukrainian arms factories inside the European Union so that they can't be attacked. And if they were attacked, it would, there would be a response, which Moscow does not want. So, Ukraine is getting to a point of self-sufficiency when it comes to its weapons. The only thing it doesn't have are ballistic missile interceptors, which is why we get attacked almost every night now. Uh, you know, I slept through last night because it happened real early in the morning, but
Wow.
they hit us
I think
pretty
it's
much every
16
day
people
now.
died. Yeah, 16 people died in one bombing alone yesterday.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, you end up. I mean, I guess that's always a concern. I would argue that to some degree, Netanyahu forced himself into this similar circumstance where you might have had, if not the sympathy of your own people, the support of it because of the story you told them or their own narrative or what they expected in the circumstance. But then you get way ahead of yourself, or like Donald Trump's. We're in the 6th month of the Iran war right now. 6 months. It's been 6 months. And this was going to take 6 days. Like, he was comparing it to Venezuela 4 months ago, which was a kidnapping, not a war. And that, I think Putin in many ways is sort of finding himself in a similar situation. It does not surprise me, though. We almost discussed this last time, that Winston Churchill faced a vote of no contest in I want to say 1942, 41. And eventually like lost an election and then was brought back in 1951. And a lot of it had to do with that, like, their people in England's feeling about the war and that kind of stuff. And then after a while, after getting a little distance, you're like, oh yeah, this guy was actually doing great. And that's why I think there's a lot of parallel, descriptions of Zelensky and Churchill and those kind of situations, that people go through these periods. The public goes through these periods where like they're tired of the war and they wish there was a solution. And maybe this whole Chamberlain dude was right after all, and we shouldn't have done this. There'll be a rise of those people, but ultimately it tips towards, no, we're really under attack. No, this is really dangerous. No, this is really bad. And when it's done and you can look back with a little bit of perspective, you're like, oh yeah, I was a little hard on the guy, because that was awful for everybody, and there was no other option. The Russians aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon.
No, they're not. And the Ukrainians are determined to make them pay for every inch that there's not a lot of movement on the front lines, either direction, really,
Right.
despite what Russia would have you believe. It's pretty static. The problem really is this lack of interceptors. And you talk about the Iran war. If we had listened to the Ukrainians, we would be in a far, far better place in that conflict. We were blowing up Shahed drones with Patriot missiles.
Right.
So that's $4 million for a $200,000 drone. If and part of it is due to this direct animosity that Trump and his cabinet hold against Ukraine, and their preference for Russia. But I'm telling you, if we had when things kicked off with Iran, had we gone to the Ukrainians and said, "Teach us everything you know," they would have said, "Well, first off, don't shoot down drones with Patriot missiles. That's a waste of a missile." The way you knock down drones, especially drones the size of Shaheeds and things like that, is with just lots of lead.
Yeah.
Lots of lead. Just throw chuck lead up into the air, and there's some other ways to do countermeasures, electronic countermeasures, but we certainly wouldn't have conducted ourselves the way we did, and burnt through our arsenal, which is having an effect here now, because now we don't even have them to send to Ukraine, even if it is through an intermediary like a European Union's money.
Right. There's a twofold problem here is that on the one hand, and I will correct you, I think you said 250,000. They're $20,000 to $50,000 that to make a Shahed drone. They're about 20 grand to 50 grand to make a Shahed. The bigger ones, obviously, the long range ones are, more expensive, whatever. But but in terms of, us firing these big interceptors at drones, it's as much like we like loud things go boom and look how macho this is aspect from Hegseth and Trump that they want to see. They're almost shock and awing themselves over this. It's not, you know what I mean? That maybe there were more effective ways. Maybe even the generals or the commanders or the naval commanders are telling them like, no, we'll just fire at these things with deck guns and get them. We're fine. We can target them. We got laser targeting. We can just shred them when they're coming in. With we got plenty of ammunition. We just need bullets. That's not good enough for Hegseth and Trump. They want to see these, and the rockets red glare. Like he wants to be a man of history, right?
Yeah.
Play ball.
Yeah. Well, now we find ourselves where we are. So
yes.
Good job,
yeah,
guys.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I mean, we also have things like the A10. We could have put up a bunch of A10s, and use their Gatling gun. We could have. Yeah, you're right. There are ground-based systems that use highly sophisticated radar and combined with a chain gun, and that would be fine. And I'm sure the Ukrainians would love that. I mean, as it is, they're shooting down these Shaheeds with old, M2 50 caliber machine guns that they mount on rooftops or in the back of pickup trucks, and then they drive around and look for Shaheeds and they shoot them down. The Russians have developed a new kind of Shahed that has a jet engine as opposed to the old kind of what you used to call the moped, moped two-stroke, so that's gonna be a problem. But look, we're gonna go through winter. It's gonna be a very difficult winter. The Russians are gonna continuously try to destroy the infrastructure here, which is a war crime, but they'll do it anyhow. And we'll see how cold it gets. We'll see if we get mass migration. I've got lots of people that I talk to here who are saying I'm seriously considering getting out, leaving, because it's going to be too awful. But then you're in the middle of a village and you don't have internet, and you lose your electricity there for different reasons, because the grid is old and faulty. But at least you're not being constantly attacked every night by ballistic missiles. So
right.
People are making plans, but they're also anticipating it's going to be a rough winter.
Right. Well, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I want to talk next about, and this is again related to where we are in the United States. And you and I talked about this on Wednesday. I think the economics of gasoline in Russia. And the long lines that are back there, Gazprom Neft is rationing gas in a country that is known as a gas station with nuclear weapons. We'll be back right after this. It's the Houseworks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. So yeah, the here I'll show you the. Was the I'll just blow this up. This guy right here. See if we all work it. There we go. And then I gotta reshape my camera again. There we go. Damn it. Dang it. Asta, you ever stare down the barrel of death, look the devil in his face? Dad, the blueberries are burning. Dang it. It's one of my favorite soft jokes in Resident Alien. In this right here, let's see if I can shrink this down so it's better. Moscow faces unprecedented, which is saying a lot. Gasoline
You're
shortage.
listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. Now, obviously, it's always an issue dealing with Russia because of their nuclear capacity.
You know what those things can do? Suck the paint off your house and give your family a permanent orange afro.
Mm-hmm. And that's what everybody is worried about. And Tucker Carlson uses that as the primary leverage. As if we don't let Russia do what they want, they're going to do the worst thing ever to the rest of the world, which again, I call BS, largely because the leadership of the Russian, the Kremlin stuff are not like go down with the ship commies or religious fanatics who believe their reward will be in heaven or Valhalla or what have you if you're Kash Patel. They are hedonists who want yachts and women too young for them. And you don't get there by turning the earth into a glowing ember. Your bluff will always be called because, even if you're in jail, the possibility of being let out and getting laid again is there versus being on the receiving end of a nuke. It's silly. But one of the things that makes it very real, and there's a sort of a parallel that I think people can understand over here, is fuel prices. So this is from I believe it's posted by Kid Post, but it's everywhere. Moscow faces unprecedented gasoline shortage as fuel crisis worsens. A gasoline shortage has hit Moscow, with fuel availability dropping by 73%. An unprecedented situation for the Russian capital. Russia has experienced a second wave of its fuel crisis, with charts indicating a widespread systemic failure. Nationwide, only 28% of gas stations have fuel at all. Mm-hmm. Like, I want people to wrap their head around that. And if you're in Moscow, maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe there's buses. Maybe you can have an electric car, a BYD or something like that and get around. But if you're out in Siberia or the eastern part of the country, which we've talked about is effectively barren, but is home to, a few million Russians, those people there's one gas station 30 miles away anyways, much less the fact that it could be empty by the time you get there and no way to get back. While in Moscow, the rate is down to just 23%. Data from the Russian app GD Benz show a sharp plunge in gasoline availability across the country. At the beginning of August, fuel could be found at around 40% of stations in the app's database. That's bad enough. Less than 50% of gas stations have gas at all in Moscow. Period. Like you roll up, half of the ones you roll up to have no gas. And this is in July. Okay. By August 19th, that figure had fallen to 28%, a 72% drop. The lowest point was recorded on August 18th at just 27%. Such numbers represent an all-time low in modern Russian history. And there's a secondary aspect to this. Where is this guy? Hold on. Yeah. That we might have a culprit in this circumstance, which is Russia has confirmed that Ukraine strikes put nearly a third of its oil refining capacity out of commission. Now, Russia sells a lot of its refined goods. Yes, it's not just that it sells oil. It sells gasoline and naphtha and all the and petroleum products as well. And these refining facilities feed the war machine, so they got to sell it to other countries. By and large, especially the plasticizing agents and all the other stuff, that goes through China, right? And the refineries don't just turn oil into gas. They separate stuff out and they define the different chemicals in the process and they purify it. And then they take the chemicals that aren't supposed to be in there and then they isolate it and you can sell that too. And if that breaks down, these are like 3 or 4 arms of your wartime economy that are falling apart.
Yeah, and so you have that, inconvenience, severe inconvenience for the Russians. Then you add to that the explosions that are happening because Ukraine continues to attack not only their refineries but their
dingleberries,
wild berries, which is their version of Amazon.
Yeah.
So you have that added to the woes of the Russians, and then a knock-on effect of attacking wild berries is that a lot of Russia's banks gave really serious loans to wild berries at very low rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so now there is concern in Russia that there might be a run on the banks.
Right.
And there are reports of people getting their money out now in anticipation of a run on the banks. And I lived in Russia in '98 when the ruble was devalued and there was a massive run on the banks. And it was a huge contributor to getting rid of Boris Yeltsin.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really when the rich and powerful in Russia started to say we have to find a replacement for Yeltsin because it's just not going well. And
Right. So,
I mean, it's just the problem for Vladimir Putin is that he came to power on a tacit agreement that he made with the people of Russia that things would stop blowing up because there was just, everybody, all the mafia was going wild in the '90s in Russia. So you had drive-by shootings and car bombs and civilians getting caught up in it. So he promised that would stop. He promised to stabilize the economy, which up until now he more or less has done, with a couple of exceptions. But all of these promises that he made to the Russian people, he's breaking them. And, Russians understand how important Ukraine is to them as a colony. So they're willing to put up with an awful lot. But these things that Putin is, the promises and the kind of arrangement that was made, you forget about our corruption, don't pay attention to, how we abuse power, give up your civil liberties, and maybe you can have 1 year, one vacation a year to some country that doesn't hate us and doesn't, demand enormous fees for visas and things like that. So you can go to Cyprus, basically. You can go to you can go to Cyprus. You can go to
to visit the
Malta.
Wilbur Ross's summer camp that he holds there for Russian oligarch kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is, and reading further, I didn't pre-read this article. I just pay attention. But according to him, Ukrainian attacks have led to the loss of a number of production facilities across several industrial sectors. This includes oil refining, fertilizer production, and the chemical industry. Oil refining, I think we're aware of. Gas prices go up, not good for everybody. Consumer hates it. Long lines, limited stuff. The Jimmy Carterization of your presidency, or your how you're looked upon in the world, other than all the good works that he did, right? Enough to eclipse what a good man he was gas lines and all that kind of stuff. The head of the RSPP, which is their chamber of commerce sort of for big industry, says, of course, this means a decline in economic growth and export opportunities. As for oil refineries, the decline is significant, 25 to 30%. According to him, after Ukraine's first strikes on the warehouse complexes of the Russian marketplace, dingleberries, it became clear that the problem of drone attacks affects not only export-oriented industries, but also those focused on the domestic market. And that's the key, I think, to the turn against, Putin, possibly, within the Russian people. Trump has said he's not going to let Ukraine use Starlink. I don't know how he has access to allow that, or that's his permission base to do that, to reach ballistic missile sites inside Russia. It's curious to me that, because you need Starlink, you need satellites to see this stuff. You don't need it to see the refineries, because regular satellites will show you where a refinery is. It's been there the whole time. It doesn't move. but the missiles, they move all the time. And so you need updated intel on these launchers. And so Trump is trying to protect these launchers. At the same time, Russia is giving targeting information on U.S. soldiers to Iran.
Mm-hmm.
The comeuppance we're going to have to deal with when all this is said and done is going to be, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be bad. And, you know, Ukrainians have a kind of a mixed feeling about America now. I mean, they're still very happy to be getting any intelligence that they do get from our, you know, our satellite, you know, um, uh, our kind of, you know, satellite information capacity,
Right.
gathering capacity. And they're happy for the weapons that they gave us. But I mean, this is not giving the Patriots or not letting them develop their own, to lease, you know, to lease them the license to create their own, which is kind of offered and then yanked back.
Right.
That isn't looked upon quite fondly here.
Yeah.
You know, it's they're going to remember. They're going to remember who stood by them in these times, and in
Well,
what
you know, this,
capacity people stood by them.
yeah, and I mean, we've been in this situation before, and the Trumpies tend to forget who helped us after all. In during the whole Freedom Fries thing, where they turned on France because France didn't want to help us attack Iraq when it was not part of the attack in the first place. And this is, you know, when Trump's saying like, we don't need NATO, let's break it apart and all this stuff. There's a lot of noise being put on how kind of dumb he is about it and how loud he is about it. But it's not that different from what George Bush and the right wing were saying about France and other countries not helping us. They were willing to help us in Afghanistan, but they weren't going to go into Iraq. And therefore, I'm not having French fries anymore. I'm having freedom fries. And we were going to put, we were going to tariff French products because they wouldn't join with us in the war effort and that kind of stuff. It was silly. And again, if you live in Indiana or Tennessee or Southern Illinois or Missouri, you're going to see a Fayette or a Lafayette road, street, or county somewhere in your area, because without Lafayette and the French helping us, we'd have lost the Revolutionary War more than likely. And this, never mind the fact that NATO did help us after 9/11 and did go into Afghanistan alongside us to try and as a police action more than anything. I mean, again, Trump does not have a grip on the reality of it. It seems increasingly that neither does Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, well, you talk about Lafayette. I mean, anybody
Yeah.
who's been in Chicago knows Pulaski Day. You know,
Yeah,
and
right.
with people forget about people from this part of the world who fought a war against the Polish aristocracy, which was an instrument of the Tsar. Actually, the Tsarina. It was Catherine. And these guys, Pulaski, there's a guy named Ceausescu. They fought against Russia, and they lost hard. They got their posterior handed to them. So they got on boats and they went to America because they couldn't pursue liberty here because of the Tsar and the Kremlin, and so they went to America to fight, you know, King George, because they just hated the idea of monarchy. And unfortunately, we don't have an episode this week. Our interview guest canceled at the last minute, but we did record today an episode that will come out next week with the descendant of the last head of the Cossacks, and so we get to talk about that, about how, you know, the Cossacks actually had a tradition of independence and liberty, and they lost to the Russians, and so they went to America. So it's an interesting conversation.
Awesome. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million's got some questions, I have no doubt, for Phil after we come back.
On the battlefield, there's a saying.
The battlefield, there's a saying. Tatanka. So trucks. That's the only thing people remember. Buffalo trucks. The shoes untied. Ticka, ticka, ticka. The irony of the American Revolution is that our main ally was the most oppressive monarchy in Europe. Yeah, I mean that would be the Hal Vickery said that. Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my frenemy. Welcome back. I'm sure we have some questions before I get off into another tear. So, Johnny Million, what do we have for Phil?
Yeah, right on. The first question I've got is from Ed. Can you ask Philip about gains on Battlefield and what's going on with Ozan, the other logistics company?
Yeah, there was a first strike on them ever.
Not a lot of movement on the yeah. Not a lot of movement on the front lines, so they're pretty static right now, and I don't see them changing significantly anytime soon. You know, Ukraine will make a little push here, Russia will make a little push there, but nobody's making any like breakout moves.
Right. For the record, I would like to point out that if the front lines don't move, that is fundamentally a loss by the invading force that should be winning because it's bigger. If you're being blocked from the end zone by a team of elementary school kids and you're a professional football team, that there is no shame on the kids. It's the pros that showed up with this plan to get in the end zone that have the explaining to do. If they can't make progress, considering all the advantages that they have, and the Ukrainians are holding them even, that is winning, period. That is winning. If you can stop the advance of your enemy and you're that much smaller, that's success. You might, and then eventually it becomes a war of attrition or who will burn their wick the fastest. And Ukraine's not going to burn out because they're fighting for their freedom, like you've said, Phil, and the Europeans aren't going to let it happen. I think by and large, Americans aren't going to let it happen. No matter what Pete Hegseth does, the Senate and the House keep sending support to Ukraine. And a lot of, I mean, they just named the bill that passed for support after Lindsey Graham. So I mean, the irony, but this is if you showed up, if you're Drago and you show up and there's a toddler in the ring, comparatively size wise and strength wise, and you're like, I'm going to roll over these, and the kid holds you to a stalemate. That's embarrassing on a massive scale. So let's grab another question.
Sure thing. This is from Fossil Rock Quasi. Can national security necessity force U.S. owners / shareholders to take a smaller cut to bolster wages in onshore industry, or are they disinterested or too removed to care?
In here in the United States, or in the United States, or in Ukraine?
In the U.S.
I just don't see there's categorically there'd be a statistically significant number of people to mobilize that action at the same time. It wouldn't show up. The numbers are so ginormous. I mean, that's what people don't understand. Like, yeah, we got a $40 trillion debt. We got somewhere in the order of a $36 trillion economy. $6 trillion goes through the computers at Goldman Sachs every night. $6 trillion in exchanges and purchases and sales of stuff. Just Goldman Sachs, $6 trillion a night. Now, granted, that's because they own a lot of credit card companies and that kind of stuff, and that money gets put in, taken out, and people buy and sell and pay things. But that should give you some idea of the scale. So even a general strike, when you talk about it, where people are like, everybody's not going to show up for work tomorrow. The country, look at COVID. The country actually could absorb almost 6 months of no one working. That was the lesson of COVID. And all you're doing is teeing up the bailout in a lot of ways. There's your actual action has to take a longer term incremental commitment. That's just the reality. No single action is going to fix any of it, and no short-term action that is going to remedy it in that regard. Whatever you want to do, it's a 10-year project. And when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, it's a similar kind of thing from like 2014. You know, there's not going to be a single thing that could make Russia not want to attack. It had to be sustained sanctioned pressure, ongoing for a very long time. And as soon as Trump rolled in, he gave him the green light. Day one. He believed Russia didn't mess with the election. I'm not their boy. Whatever they do, he's my friend. Obviously, crooked Joe Biden and the Biden crime family are all up to their necks in corruption in Ukraine. That was the story. Well, that story's not an accident.
Yeah.
And to protect Ukraine, I think and Europe and the free world, if we're going to be, if the president is going to be the leader of the free world again at some point, the next president is going to have to align with those forces and get the American people on board again with the long-term project of democracy and freedom. Because right now they aren't. And on the right, especially that Curtis Yarvin stuff I brought up and the Ayn Randian aspect, like, that's a line they crossed a long time ago. They're out. They've checked out. The irony is that Make America Great Again and America First are ironic titles on a scale that I think they're only just now waking up to. It's as dumb as if they said Ukraine first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's grab another one. We got time before the break.
All right. So I've got one from Out of the Silent Patrick. I had heard that there is about to be a run on the banks in Russia, and they put defensive weapons atop bank buildings in Moscow. Has Phil heard about this as well?
Yeah, I have. And I've also heard of them doing trial runs of shutting down the internet for social media, for organizing protests. I've heard stories of them deploying their paramilitary forces to put down protests. There have been well-recorded exercises where a van of these guys will show up, they'll deploy into a square, they'll be in their riot gear with their billy clubs and their shields and body armor and masks and all the rest of it. So I think Putin is well aware that there's a powder keg, there's a potential powder keg there, and again, the run on the banks and the fact that things are blowing up when things aren't supposed to be blowing up anymore.
Yeah. So it was funny because I had this article up, kind of queued up to talk about this in particular. This is from the Washington Post. It's just a couple days ago. Russians pull billions from banks, fearing Kremlin will seize deposits for war. It's causing liquidity problems for banks and undermining the Kremlin's ability to issue bonds to finance the fight with Ukraine. Russians are pulling down billions from the country's banking system, a record cash outflow amid intensifying Ukrainian drone attacks and rising fear that the Kremlin could start seizing deposits to finance its war. And, we've seen them do this before, but it was mostly like idiot American maggots who moved there for the freedoms, right? For freedom. Nearly $3.4 billion, which is 286.4 billion rubles, was withdrawn in the first 2 weeks of August. On top of the 7.3 billion withdrawn in July, more than 4.5 billion in June, according to the Russian central bank data. Total withdrawals this year could nearly double the amount taken out in the first year of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, according to Taras Skvortsov, a senior executive at Sberbank, Russia's biggest retail financial institution. They're treating this like, Putin's going to double down and take their cash to pay for keeping this going. And I think it parallels what a lot of people feel about the cost of the Iran war and what Trump is willing to pay out of other people's pockets to keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not foolish to think that. I mean, he absolutely could do that. There are parliamentary elections in quotation marks in Russia in September. And the general consensus is, or the suspicion is, that two things happen after that a sham election happens. Is that Putin will use it as a mandate. He will say that it shows that the Russian people are still very much behind the government. They're very much behind what the government is doing and all the rest of it. And that will spark one or two or both of the following things: either a large-scale mobilization. People are really worried about that, and we're starting to see people prepare for another round of brain drain, getting young men of fighting age out of Russia, sneaking them out. And secondly, some sort of financial grab from the banks to keep things going. Both of these are very real concerns that Russians have, and I think that's a fair. If I were Russian, I would be thinking very seriously about that too, because I think the election, quote unquote, the sham election. After that, he'll use that as an excuse to do a bunch of things, because they cannot keep going like this. Frankly, neither side can keep going like this. Ukraine doesn't have a choice. So Ukraine will continue to fight no matter what, but they are exhausted, and and the damage being done to their country is significant. Living in this country without electricity during a winter is very, very hard to do. It's not great during a heat wave either, which is what we're going through currently. But they don't have a choice. The Russians, however, they have so many fault lines, whether it's economic or cultural or political or international, geopolitical, international trade. So many things, so many pressure points are happening inside Russia that, and this is an existential threat to their sense of self as empire, but it is not necessarily an existential threat to the Russian Federation as a whole. I do, having said that, still have my belief that there is the possibility of a breakup, because it is so. The Russian Federation is made up of so much that is a vertical power structure that if I'm the governor of some far eastern republic that's part of the Russian Federation, I might start looking to Beijing.
Yeah,
that might be a more reliable and closer ally than Moscow. So, everything. It's all vertical power and money.
Or you look at the U.S. or Europe as a strategic point, because if they have a relationship with you, you have more value to them as boxing in northern China, being on the to the west of North Korea as a break away from Russia. That this point of eventually going, we want a bigger relationship. And if they've got any attachment to Kazakhstan, that throughput, because Kazakhstan has effectively done that for all practical purposes at this point. They are clearly playing both sides, but they're living high on the hog and ignoring the power structures of Russia and China at the same time. And if you could side with them and have a better relationship with Europe and NATO via a relationship with Turkey or those kind of things, like, you do it. Because again, what's the benefit structure from China except them always trying to get you back into good graces with Russia, or them trying to shoehorn you back online or taking you over? Because again, we know that Xi Jinping put out a map a couple of years ago that renamed parts of Russia, their Chinese names, back to before the Sino-Russian War. So they've got eyes on that ground too. It might not be a matter of the governor breaking it up. It might be that Russia, gets in a situation where it's on its heels, and China, everybody's talking about what it'll do to Taiwan. That's a big ask. That country's got a moat around it.
The countries of the Caucasus They have all the motivation in the world to also be looking away from Moscow, given the history that they have, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
none of the three major countries in the Caucasus are very fond of Moscow, and those are independent former Soviet republics. Even inside Russia, there are Caucasus nations like the North Ossetians, the Dagestanis, the Ingushettians, all of these guys who are the kind of Caucasus republics of the Russian Federation. They hate Moscow because Moscow takes everything from them. Again, it is a vertical power structure. So if the center can't hold, there may be some serious upheaval, breakaway republics, all that, and then you're left with kind of a rump: Muscovy, St. Petersburg, maybe Ekaterinburg, maybe Sochi or something, maybe up into the Arctic. I don't know, but the further east you go, I think they Moscow has always kind of done this, and it was Catherine who expanded too quickly and too far, and they've been desperate to hold on to it. And I think that Putin could be the one that is sat in the chair in the Kremlin when the entire Russian Empire. He tried to save the Russian Empire. He tried to regain the Russian Empire. What I think he did instead was I think he sped up its destruction.
Right.
I really think he is when he loses this war, which he will eventually do, then the ramifications for him are going to be very bad. The only thing that might save him is the fact that Russians don't want the instability of going through a civil war and disintegration of the Federation. So they might also delude themselves and go, well, yeah, we did walk away from Ukraine as winners. We got Donbass. Well, what good is Donbass for you? What really? I mean, Donbass is nothing special or new for you. It is not territory you particularly need unless you're going to have your naval base in Crimea. And you're not going to have a naval base in Crimea because Ukraine, even without a navy, has forced your Black Sea Fleet to move to the far eastern banks.
Well, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Don't forget, On the Edge is Phil's show. Subscribe today at his YouTube channel at Philip Ittner on there. And then, of course, Johnny Million has, I think, another question after we come back.
I do.
Upgrade your summer drives with the stunning
Here's the weird part, and this is one of the weird parts. I mean, it's all weird. But, Phil, so they fight so hard to have Crimea because of Sevastopol as their warm water port for their military boats. But Sochi is a giant port on the Black Sea, but they use it for passenger boats. And it just seems like they almost do it in Sevastopol out of spite or to gain that ground. To like, if we put a military base there and claim it as ours,
I am
then
happy, you are happy. Let us
talk about
be
this
happy together.
And happy.
Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo. Woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay!
So I do have an actual beyond the stuff that we all it's always hard to find a happy ending in the midst of all the stuff that's going on these days, but I do think that this is crucial. And that, and I try to steer clear of the Schadenfreude part of it, where my good news is a dunk on the right. But this one actually, I think, qualifies massively on both fronts. I'm very excited about it. And I'll bring this up, and I think it's very specific. Scientific American, this is the article, but there's a bunch of other stories about this week that came out. Landmark trial shows mRNA therapy significantly cuts the odds of recurrent skin cancer and stops it from spreading and turning into other cancers across the body. The combined drug works by nudging the body's own immune system to make proteins that attack and destroy the melanoma cells. It's an mRNA therapy, which is exactly the anti-vaxxers crowd, that we dealt with them complaining about the mRNA COVID vaccines, which, by the way, are not the ones that gave people myocarditis. That was the Johnson & Johnson, which was a standard old live virus form. Kill the virus and let your immune system. Johnny, are you rolling a cigar or? I was like, you're either starting a campfire or, all right.
I'm looking at my ear tips. I'm so excited now.
Oh, I got you. Okay, cool.
Ending. My in-ears work.
Yeah, boy, it's a big step forward. It's big for your vocals.
It is. Sorry about that, Hal.
So
that was a lot of noise.
That's okay. It's all right. So, but this is ginormous. For the record, this is an mRNA vaccine, which the maggots are fundamentally against. It is the Maha, folks that pushed RFK Jr. in are freaking out about this. And this is categorically a step forward in all cancer treatments. The future of cancer treatment will be genetically targeted. And it will be based on mRNA at first and then direct genetic targeting of your tumors themselves. And AI made it possible. Let's be abundantly clear. And this was all done with computing in a giant data center. That does not mean we need more of them. That certainly doesn't mean we need a Grok or a Meta one because they're relatively useless. But in this particular instance, this is what the stuff is actually being used for. And once it does it, once we figure it out, and once it can, you can train a model specifically on this kind of stuff, it's over. You can just shut down the data center and build a locally trained AI takes about 40%. Training an AI takes about 40% of its energy usage over its lifetime. You finish that, park it in a series of servers at I don't know, Sloan Kettering or at one of these, the Mayo Clinic or those kind of things. And they use, they structurally node themselves with other, medical facilities, and their AI is designed just on this stuff. It uses 40% less energy from the jump. It will get more efficient over time, and it will cure nearly every cancer that exists, not just in humans, but in animals as well. This is a major thing. And so they're saying that the day, I think it was technically the 19th or the 18th, I think the 16th is when they got their trial stuff. That August 16th, 2026 is right up there with the discovery of penicillin and the ability to make antibiotics as far as human health goes. That is going to be a red letter day forever. So good news. If we can stop killing each other over huge tracts of land, eventually we will eliminate a lot of the diseases that make life very difficult, painful, and sad for a lot of people. So there. And by the way, while Vladimir Putin gets up every morning trying to figure out a new and creative way to kill innocent civilians in Ukraine, scientists like these folks get up every morning trying to find a way to save lives en masse through better use of it. Every day. Think of all the people, yourselves included, who wake up every day seeking to do no one harm in the world, and at the same time going, hey, how do I make this better? Even if I'm just smiling at somebody on the street and it cheers them up in a situation, that in and of itself, right?
Fred Rogers. Look for the helpers.
Look for the helpers. Yep. And you don't even have to look. I'm showing them to you. So there you go. Let's grab another question before we reach the tail end of this. But again, I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is Phil's show. Please subscribe to it. And then, of course, infotainmentwars.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel here. And I'm everywhere. So you don't have if you're on Twitch, at Hal Sparks. If you're on Instagram,
don't even have to look for him.
Yeah. I'll show up in your yard with a sign. I'm eventually going to hologram stream myself into it. I think we froze Phil, though. Nope, there he is. Okay, good.
There he is.
So, all right, go ahead.
So, Phil, I've got a question here from Elizabeth. What are Phil's thoughts on Russian incursions into Poland?
Well, yeah, this has been floated. There have been a couple of incidents in European Union countries. There was an incident at, I believe it was an arms factory or a, was it air defense factory in Leipzig that had a lot of fingerprints all over it from the Russians, it being sabotage. I think it was a big fire or something. A couple of drones have dropped into Polish territory, but also some Ukrainian air defense stuff has dropped in. But there wouldn't be any Ukrainian air defense stuff flying if the Russians weren't invading Ukraine. So ultimately, they still hold responsibility for that. But there has been a lot of talk of the potential for there, to be some sort of testing of Article 5. Because the consensus is that Trump will not hold up the U.S. part of the bargain when it comes to Article 5. And Russia wants to destroy, Putin in particular wants to destroy NATO, and that would be a death blow to NATO if Washington, if they did something to Estonia, the Russians, and Estonia as a NATO member state said we're invoking Article 5. Do you really think that Donald Trump is going to go, yeah, we'll come to the aid of Estonia, which it's like total population, I don't think is more than 3 or 4 million people. A wonderful country and an equal partner in the alliance. And that's why I think Putin is eyeing up the idea of creating some sort of threat to a NATO member state so that it can break the back of the alliance. And hopefully we'll be smarter than that. I don't know. I mean, the head of the DOD is a moron. The president is compromised by Putin. But I still think that there are a lot of people in our security apparatus and within our military that would say, no, we got to keep the alliance going.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't think the Senate would allow him not to. And I think one of the things he might do is he'll slow walk stuff like he did with javelins, but he can't stop it because the United States, he can't pull us out of a treaty unilaterally. And that also means he cannot ignore the treaty unilaterally, but he can slow everything down. That's the concern. He get, and
I'm sure
that's the window. That's the window Putin was looking for. Thank you so much, Phil. Be safe. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you again very soon on Wednesday when you can swear on my show.
Phil.
Johnny Million, you're
All
awesome,
right,
and we'll be back next week. Thank you, Chicago. See you next
Thanks,
week.
everyone.
Thanks, Chicago. See you on Wednesday.
Putin humiliated at his vacation resort plunges into war chaos. Yeah, that was the other story I was going to bring up, so somebody already brought it up in there. But yeah, he's apparently he's afraid to go to Sochi because of the drones going overhead, and that's the idea that they've been keeping him in Russia's version of NORAD. That's why he's out in these or these eastern villages where they've got these giant Cold War military bunker facilities.
Yeah.
And apparently they're blocking the roads on his trips out there, and that's what proves that he's there, because they've only got a limited number of those things. They're not going to just use them for show. So anyways, love you, brother. Be safe.
Right,
I'll let you guys go.
All right, take care.
I got a long honeydew list, and yeah. All right, there you go. I'm going to let them go. And bye, Johnny Million. Okay, off they go. And it's just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I. What's happening, people? Good to see you. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why my show doesn't break through in some of those instances. I'm not going to be asked on one of these Jubilee things anytime soon. I don't think. You know why? And I think this is twofold. One is, am I good in my arguments? Absolutely. I'm fantastic. Do I have facts on my side? Sure. Am I? Do I have a uniform belief system that does not allow for criticism? No, which also makes me impervious to certain types of criticism. Ironically, but it's also that I don't have a generalized hostility towards people who disagree with me. I'm in the business of understanding, not just me understanding people, which is crucial to the art that I participate in, but also helping other people understand. Ladies and gentlemen, what is acting and music and stand up comedy, especially, if not the act of helping people in groups understand a perspective out in the open that they may not hear regularly, or they may think they're alone in. So you help them share their perspective with a broader group and going, hey, I'm actually not the only one confused, upset, all that kind of stuff, right? And so it's that there's sort of a lack of even, you know, sub I mean, don't get me wrong. I clearly have hostility certain people, towards certain people. Look at the Epstein class, that crowd. I clearly am not a fan of the accelerationist faux progressives, but that wouldn't. My disdain for those people doesn't make me attack real progressives, people who genuinely want the thing that faux progressives say they want. That's the key. Because those folks, my next question is how? Let's just work on how. I'm with you. This is a problem worth solving. How? And that's okay. And we can, if I'm kicking the tires on your idea or your plan, it's not because I hate it. It's not because I have disdain for it, or not that I'm mocking it even directly. I'm trying to see if it'll work before we get in this car and start heading down the freeway. We want to make sure the tires won't go flat, the engine won't blow up, and it's not going to overheat in the middle of the desert. You understand? So I feel I have a responsibility when people make extraordinary claims about stuff, even on our side, that we kick the tires on it. And I think in a situation where we share, in theory, at least I would like to think, the same values towards human life and how people feel and how, what the inherent meaning of the Constitution is and the priorities therein of democratic taxation and which was the purpose of the breakaway in the first place. That once we can establish that we're on the same page with that, it's going to take a lot of fine tuning to get a system that works for the most people possible. And it's still not going to work for everybody. It just isn't. And so what do you do with the people it doesn't work for? Fuck them? Throw them in jail? I mean, that's very right wing, right? So, and I'm, fact check everything is important, but also make sure it lines up with the data you actually have. And don't let somebody dog walk you into a lamppost. Don't let them say something, and because they're wrong about 80% of the stuff they say, when they say 20% of stuff that's true, because that's how you lie properly, you have to lace your lies with some level of obviously, clearly, it's common sense that blah, blah, blah. All common sense assertions, all the bullshit about common sense is always layered with stuff that is either an obvious fact or more often a common misconception, a believed fact that a lot of people have and that they have a vested interest in believing. And so if you attack it or you undermine it, they'll act like white blood cells attacking a germ. They'll defend where they're wrong rather than fix being right. I think it was back in the how your list is waiting. The list is waiting. Don't know what that means. My list. Look it up. So, anyways, my goal overall, especially with this show, is to show you the arguments that are out there. And one of the things I would prefer, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this in comment sections and around the show and in future chats, whatever, is my refusal to allow realities to be, actual facts, to be the domain of someone who will misuse those facts and create lies from them. That's what malinformation and misinformation is. Misinformation is passing along something that you're either too stupid to see is wrong or you're just mistaken about. Malinformation is intentionally weaponizing a fact with a lie and sending it out in the same way that, like, that's how a virus works. A virus it bonds with it has the bonding agent that works with your cells. It just puts poison inside. It just it releases these little time bombs and stuff into your own cells, right? So the when we talk about some of the uncomfortable truth, well, I mean, what's a good example? Rittenhouse, when we went through that whole shit or whatever, you could make the case that he shouldn't have been there with a long gun and still understand that he was attacked and it was self-defense because the people there weren't necessarily, quote unquote, the best people either. And that what we should all be working towards, and this is, I know it's kooky, is a situation where no one's armed at a protest ever. That's not part of your right to protest. Is open carry. It's because of the danger to public safety and public health. Aw, speaking of the danger to public safety and public health,
I moved the carpet.
Uh-huh.
And it's upright.
Uh-huh.
He thinks it's a scratching post. He's climbing.
Oh, I see. He was the rolled up. Oh, well, look at this little guy. What are you doing, Mr. Man? You're going through you think the carpet that we're supposed to lay down is your scratching post now? Is that what you think?
Yep.
Well, maybe it is, because you're wondering. Bucky, everyone, Bucky. Bucky has stitch ears. We know this. And he is, I have to say, a lovely cat. No offense to our other cats, who all have great personalities and the like, but Bucky's next level. And yeah, he was a keeper, and I knew it. Didn't I, buddy? Didn't I? That's right. And it's not just because you like to lay backwards you like to lay on your back on my lap and while I'm sitting on the couch, and then you go to sleep. He's not big on, it's funny, he's not big on being held for long periods of time. He just does it, and he's like, I'm cool. He didn't freak out or any of that. He's just like, oh, time to go. But he's not a lap cat. He doesn't necessarily sit right up next to you. He'll sit nearby just to like, hey, I'm just checking, make sure you're there. I'm cool. You're cool. I'm cool. And what's he doing? No, not power cable. Not thank you. But he'll lay on his back on your legs, like when you're sitting still or on a couch or something, just like this. What is this doing? What is this? What is he doing? What is going on? What in the world? Where is this? You've got a whole dance floor. What is going on? What is happening? What is going on? You're such a great cat. Anyway, so famous last words. That's a buddy. I know. We just hang out. So that said, I will see you guys later. Have a beautiful day. There we go. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I have a button. I have a couple of buttons to push. Is that okay? Can you hang out while I push the buttons? Is that okay? Yeah? Hold on 1 second. Just gonna scroll over here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good. It's always the thing where I have to like switch over to this. There we go. And let's see. I've been having requests for this one lately.
Yeah.
So
if they ask, I forgot it. You ain't seen nothing.
That's right.
Yeah. We ain't
Take care.
seen nothing.
Be good. Do good.
Black bar from my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too much, hit send, heart swollen. Now I keep receipts like a lawyer with a folder. But anything risky get hit with the toner. Whole group chat, got tails, I ain't claim. If my name pop up, that's a typo, blame. Who's that in the pic, man, that ain't go strange. That's a random stranger with a very close face. Understanding my friends, I plead don't recall. If they ask for the tape, it's a missing file. If they pull up the clip, that's deep fake style. If they show me the proof, I just smile. Like redacted, black ball from my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact. If it hit too close, that's a rumor I heard. If the dateline match, that's a clerical error. If the outfit match, that's a popular shirt. If the tattoo match, that's a stock photo search. I'm allergic to question, carving the light. I just edit the ending, soften the bite. Take the worst 3 parts of the night, then slice like fun was had and we were not. Every X got a chapter I seal. Every text got a gap in the reel. I ain't lying, I'm curating the reveal. Just trimming little bits of the raw, real deal. If you saw, you didn't. If you know, you didn't. If you talk, I'm clipping. If they ask, we glitching. Swipe that name out, crop that frame out. If it made me look foul,
thank you guys so much.
Fade out. Black ball from my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight,